I am Thomas, 67 years old. For 5 years, I let my daughter Emily and her husband Mark live in my house for free. Last Tuesday, she threw an electric bill at me and screamed that I was just a boarder in her home. She demanded I pay $5,000 a month in rent or get out. I simply nodded, packed a bag, and walked out the door. They didn't know I owned the house through an ironclad trust. I immediately called my lawyer and sold it for $940,000 in cash. When the new owners started the eviction process, Emily called me hysterical, but my reply was not what she expected. Before I continue, let me know in the comments where you are listening from. And please like and subscribe if you believe families should respect their elders. The electric bill slapped the granite countertop with a sharp crack that echoed in the kitchen. It was the only sound in the room, a sound like a starting pistol for a race I didn't know I was in. Mark, my son-in-law, slid it toward me with a greasy finger. $450, Thomas, he said. His voice was lazy, a perpetual drawl that always managed to sound both bored and accusatory at the same time. What exactly are you trying to do, heat the entire city of Austin? I looked at the piece of paper. $450.37. It was addressed to me, Thomas, the man whose name was on the deed to the very ground Mark was standing on. I'm the one who pays this bill, Mark, I said, keeping my voice even. I've told you that. It's the principle of the thing, he shot back. Mark is 38. He wears wrinkled polo shirts he probably slept in. He lives in my house for free and hasn't held a steady job in 8 months. He knows an awful lot about principles. We are trying to save money, he continued, jabbing at the bill as if it were a hostile witness. And you're running the heat like we own the utility company. We, I asked. The word felt strange. Mark will pay the bill. And it's November. It's cold outside. That's when Emily, my daughter, walked in. She was drying her hands on a dish towel, one of the few things left from the wedding set Caroline and I received 45 years ago. She saw the bill. She saw Mark's defensive posture. And she immediately, reflexively took his side. Dad, he's right, she said. Her voice was soft, which, as I'd learned, was always worse than when she yelled. We all need to be more careful. Every dollar counts right now. I looked at my daughter, my Emily. She was wearing a Lululemon workout outfit, the kind that costs $120 for the pants alone. She hadn't worked since she married Mark 5 years ago. I resisted the urge to point that out. Emily, I said, my patience wearing thin. I have paid this bill. I pay the property taxes. I pay the insurance. I pay for the groceries. I have paid for every single thing in this house for 5 years, ever since you two moved in, right after your mother passed away. The name Caroline hung in the air. This kitchen with its custom oak cabinets I'd built myself and the quartz countertops I paid for just last year had been her sanctuary. Now it felt more like a battlefield. Mark scoffed. Don't pull the dead wife card, Thomas. This is about responsibility. We're a family. We're supposed to be a team. A team. Right. A team where I was the only one pulling the plow. And what's your contribution to the team, Mark? I couldn't help myself. I don't see you contributing to the $18,000 a year tax bill. I don't see you buying groceries. I did see you order a $300 set of golf clubs from Amazon last week, shipped right to this address. Mark's face flushed a dull red. That was a business expense I'm networking. Networking for what? A job you haven't even applied for. Enough! Emily shouted. The shift was instant. The soft, concerned daughter was gone, replaced by this sharp, brittle stranger she'd become. This is exactly the problem, Dad. You're always attacking. You're always judging. You sit here in your little kingdom and judge us. This little kingdom is my home, I said, my voice hardening. It's our home, she snapped back. We live here. We've put our lives on hold to be here with you, Tatum. I almost laughed out loud. On hold, you moved in because you were evicted from your apartment in Dallas. You moved in because Mark lost his job. We moved in to support you after Mom died. That was 5 years ago, Emily. I am fine. It seems to me you're the ones who need the support. This was going nowhere. I sighed, picking up the bill and folding it neatly. I will pay this as I always do, but Mark, you will not speak to me that way in my own house again. Mark looked at Emily. It was a silent, smug challenge. Are you going to let him talk to me like that? Emily drew herself up to her full height. Her face hardened, and the daughter I knew vanished completely. She was replaced by this cold, entitled stranger. No, Emily said, her voice dropping to a low, dangerous level. We're not doing this anymore, Dad. We are not going to live under your thumb. My thumb? I was genuinely confused. I pay for everything. How is that living under my thumb? Exactly, she interrupted. You hold it over us. This kingdom, as you call it. You make us feel small. You make us feel like children. Mark chimed in, smelling blood in the water. She's right, Thomas. We can't build our future when we're stuck here living off your scraps, worrying about a $400 electric bill. Then don't worry about it, I said. Both of you go get jobs and buy your own house. Emily laughed. It was a sharp, ugly sound that didn't belong in Caroline's kitchen. Oh, Dad, you just don't get it, do you? We like this house. We like this neighborhood. This is our life. You're the one who's in the way. I stared at her. In the way? Do you have any idea, she said, stepping closer, what it's like to be 36 years old and have to tell your friends you live with your father? Do you know how humiliating that is? I imagine it's less humiliating than telling them you're homeless, I muttered. What did you say, Mim? Nothing. No, say it. I said. I repeated, standing up. I imagine it's less humiliating than being homeless, which you would have been 5 years ago if I hadn't taken you in. The truth hit her hard, but instead of shame, it curdled into rage. See, she shrieked, turning to Mark. This is what I'm talking about. He holds it over us. He treats us like dirt. She spun back to me, her eyes narrowed. You know what, Dad? Mark and I had a long talk last night. We've been caretakers for 5 years. Caretakers, I almost shouted. I'm 67, not 97. I don't need a caretaker. I fixed your garbage disposal last week. I drove you to the dentist because Mark was too busy playing video games. It's emotional labor, Dad, she yelled. The stress of worrying about you, the burden of knowing you're just in the next room listening, judging. We are wasting the best years of our lives, the years we should be building our family, stuck here babysitting a bitter old man. A bitter old man, I repeated. The words felt like gravel in my mouth. Yes, and it's over, she said, crossing her arms. We've made a decision. Things are going to change. For real this time. Mark stood beside her, a triumphant smirk on his face. This was clearly his idea, but Emily was the executioner. All right, I said, sitting back down. What change are you proposing? You want me to stop fixing the plumbing? No, Emily said. We want you to start contributing. Really contributing. I contribute everything. You contribute to the house, Mark interjected. You don't contribute to us, to the stress, to the time, to having to put up with you. A cold dread crept up my spine. What are you talking about, Mark? Emily delivered the final blow. We've looked at the market rates for a room in this zip code, plus utilities, plus compensation for our care. She paused, savoring the moment. We've decided that $5,000 a month is a fair price for you to continue living here. The air was sucked from my lungs. $5,000 a month. That's right, Mark said, nodding. To live in my own house. It's not your house anymore, Emily said, her voice flat, devoid of all emotion. Not really. A house belongs to the people who live in it, who make it a home. That's us. You're just here. I looked at the oak cabinets I had sanded and stained by hand. I looked at the tile floor Caroline and I had laid on our knees one hot July. This house, I whispered, is in my name. I paid off the mortgage in 2005. It is my house. Emily laughed that ugly laugh again. That's just a piece of paper. That's old person thinking. This is our world now, Dad. And in our world, you pay your way. And if I refuse, I asked, my voice barely audible, if I don't pay your $5,000 extortion fee. The look on Emily's face, my daughter's face, became a mask of cold, absolute indifference. She leaned in close enough for me to see the gold flecks in her eyes, just like her mother's. Then you get out. What? You heard me. Pay the rent or get out. We are not supporting you anymore. You have until the 1st of the month. That's 10 days. Find the money or find a new place to live. Mark was grinning, a truly disgusting sight. Emily stood tall, proud of herself, as if she'd just closed a major business deal. And I just stared at her. I stared at the stranger wearing my daughter's face. I saw the $1,500 iPhone in her hand. I saw the $2,000 diamond necklace Mark had surprised her with last Christmas, a necklace I had paid for when I'd given Mark $2,500 for a car repair emergency that never happened. I had financed my own execution. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I didn't list the thousands of dollars I'd spent, the sacrifices I'd made. What was the point? They knew. They just didn't care. My heart, which I thought had broken when Caroline died, just found a new way to shatter. I stood up from the kitchen table. I looked at the half-eaten dinner I had cooked for them. I understand, I said. My voice was perfectly flat. Emily's triumphant smile faltered. She had expected a fight. She had expected tears, begging arguments. She had prepared for a storm. She was not prepared for calm. You understand, she stammered. Yes, I said. I understand completely. Pay or get out. You've made your position clear. I turned and walked out of the kitchen. I went to my bedroom, the master bedroom Caroline and I had shared, the one room they hadn't dared to claim. Yet. I closed the door. I heard the lock click into place. I sat on the edge of the bed in the silence. I could hear their voices in the kitchen, lowered to whispers now. Well, that was easy, I heard Mark murmur. Emily let out a nervous giggle. See, I told you. He's just a lonely old man. He has nowhere else to go. He'll pay. I looked at the photograph of Carolyn on my nightstand. Well, sweetheart, I whispered to her. You were right. You always said Emily married a leech. You just never knew she was one too. I picked up my phone. It was time to call Henderson. He'll pay, Emily had said. Oh yes, they were all about to pay. I sat on the edge of the bed. The click of the lock still echoed in the room. Pay or get out. And the words repeated in my head, a stupid, vicious little rhythm. Pay or get out. My daughter, my Emily, had just threatened to make her 67-year-old father homeless. The father who had paid for her college, her wedding, and the roof over her head for the last 5 years. I could hear them on the other side of the door. The whispers. The relief. I distinctly heard Mark say, well, that was easier than I thought. Emily's nervous giggle. See, I told you. He's just a lonely old man. He has nowhere else to go. He'll pay. A lonely old man. Maybe I was. I reached for the silver frame on my nightstand. Caroline. She smiled back at me, frozen in time from our trip to the Grand Canyon in 1998. Her eyes were bright, full of life, full of the mischief I adored. Oh, Caroline, I whispered to the glass. You wouldn't believe this. You wouldn't believe what she's become. Caroline had been the smart one, the planner, I was the builder, the one who worked with his hands. She was the strategist, the one who saw 3 moves ahead in any game. She's got Mark's ambition, Caroline used to say about Emily. I just pray she doesn't get his morals. It seemed her prayers hadn't been answered. This was our room, our room. I had carried Caroline over this threshold in 1985. Emily was born when we lived in that first tiny apartment, but she grew up in this house. This was the room I had sat in holding Caroline's hand as she took her last breath 5 years and 3 months ago. And now that same daughter was demanding $5,000 for the privilege of sleeping in this bed. He has nowhere else to go, Emily had said. That's where she was wrong. That's where they were both so catastrophically, beautifully wrong. They saw me as old. They saw me as weak. They saw me as simple. What they didn't see was Caroline's foresight. I stood up and walked to the closet. Behind my old work boots and a box of Caroline's shoes I still couldn't bear to throw away, there was a small black safe set into the wall. I spun the dial. 10. 22. 75. Our anniversary. The tumblers clicked. Inside, beneath my old service medals and Caroline's pearls, was a thick, leather-bound folder. I pulled it out and sat on the bed. The Caroline Vance Thomas Irrevocable Trust. Caroline was a legal secretary for 30 years before she retired. She saw things. She saw families tear each other apart over wills. She saw greedy children try to declare their parents incompetent. 10 years ago, when the doctors first mentioned the word cancer, she didn't cry. She got organized. Thomas, whoa, she had said, sitting right here in this kitchen, we have to protect ourselves, not from strangers, from family. At the time, I thought she was being paranoid. Emily was in college. She was sweet. She was our little girl. But I trusted my wife. I would have trusted Caroline with my life, and in the end, I did. We went to see a top-tier estate lawyer, not some local guy, but a shark from downtown Austin. We spent 6 months and thousands of dollars restructuring everything. We didn't just write a will. We created a fortress. We took this house, the house I built, the house I paid off in 2005, and we transferred the deed. We moved it out of my name. We moved it out of her name. We placed it permanently and legally into the trust. I am not the owner of this house. Not anymore. I am the sole lifetime trustee. I am the manager. I am the one in control. The house belongs to the trust. And who is the beneficiary of that trust? Our other child. Our son Leo in Chicago. The one who calls every Sunday just to see how I am. The one who sends pictures of his kids. The one who has never asked me for a single dime. Emily. She was left a generous cash sum in our will, but she has absolutely zero claim on this property. None. Legally, Emily and her deadbeat husband are not family members living with their long-suffering father. They are tenants at will, guests, squatters with an invitation that just expired. A cold, sharp clarity washed over me, pushing the pain down. Pay or get out, she had demanded. She had just given me, the landlord, an ultimatum. She had just tried to charge the owner rent. The sheer breathtaking arrogance of it, the stupidity. They were so blinded by their greed, so convinced of my weakness, so certain that I was a simple old man that they never even bothered to run a simple public records search on the property. They just assumed it was all theirs for the taking. I looked at Caroline's picture again. "You did it, sweetheart," I said. A small cold smile touched my lips for the first time in days. "You saved me, even now." Emily thought I had nowhere to go. I could go anywhere. I have my pension. I have my savings. And I have the full, unrestricted legal authority of this trust backing me. She thought she was giving me 10 days to find $5,000. She had no idea she just gave herself 10 days to find a new life. I stood up. The shock was gone. The grief for my daughter was still there, but it was now packed in ice. All that was left was clarity. I picked up my phone. It wasn't time to call my son Leo. Not yet. It was time to call my lawyer. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time. The leather of the folder was cool against my fingers. Outside the door, the whispering had stopped. I heard the clink of glasses. Laughter. They were celebrating. They had just successfully shaken down a 67-year-old widower for $5,000 a month, and they were celebrating. "He'll pay," Emily had said. I picked up my phone. My hands were perfectly steady. I scrolled past Emily and Leo to the letter H, Henderson. The phone rang twice before he picked up. His voice was exactly as I remembered it from 10 years ago in that high-rise office, calm, precise, and expensive. "Henderson Legal. This is Mr. Henderson speaking." "Henderson," I said, my voice quiet. "It's Thomas. Thomas Vance." There was a pause. He was pulling up my file. "Thomas, it's been a long time. I trust you're well given the circumstances of our last meeting." "I'm fine, Henderson. But I'm calling about the trust, Caroline's trust." "Of course," he said. "Is there an issue with the distributions for Leo?" "No," I said. "It's time. I want you to sell the Austin house." The silence on the other end of the line was heavy. I could picture him in his corner office, adjusting his gold-rimmed glasses, looking out over the city. "Thomas? Sell the house. What's happened? You know the terms of the trust are clear. You have lifetime rights to reside, but selling it, that's a major liquidation." "I am aware of the terms, Henderson. I am the trustee, and I am instructing you to sell the asset." "Okay," he said slowly, shifting into his professional legal mode. "But Thomas, you have to understand, we can't just sell it. Your daughter and her husband are living there. They have established residency. They are for all intents and purposes tenants, even without a written lease. Under Texas law, we have to give them a formal written 30-day notice to vacate. They can and likely will contest it. They can claim hardship. They can drag this out in the courts for months, maybe a year. And no one will buy $1 million property with hostile occupants." I listened patiently. He was a good lawyer. He saw all the logical problems, but he didn't have the emotional component. "They won't be a problem," I said. "Thomas, you're not listening. They are the problem. You can't just kick your daughter out." "Henderson," I interrupted, and my voice was no longer that of a client, but of a manager. "An hour ago, my daughter informed me that I am, in her words, just a boarder in this house. She then gave me an ultimatum. Pay $5,000 a month in rent by the first of the month or get out. Her exact words were, pay or get out." The lawyer was silent. I had finally, after 10 years, managed to surprise him. What? "She just tried to extort her landlord, Henderson. She just gave the trustee of the property notice to vacate." "My God, Thomas, I'm sorry." "Don't be," I said. "This clarifies things. But you're right. I can't wait months. I don't want to fight them in court. I don't want open houses. I don't want a for sale sign on the lawn. I want this done fast, and I want it done clean." "What are you proposing?" he asked. "I'm not selling it on the market," I said. "I'm not dealing with staging and repairs and waiting for the right buyer. I want you to call an iBuyer, an investment firm. Austin Property Ventures, open door. Zillow offers. I don't care who. I want a cash offer as is sight unseen. I want it closed in 7 days." "Thomas," Henderson protested, "you'll take a massive hit. They'll offer you 15, maybe 20% below market value just for the convenience. The house is worth $1.1 million easily. You'll be lucky to get $950. $940,000, I said. "What?" "I'll take $940. I don't care about the money, Henderson. I care about the principle, as Mark would say. I want this asset liquidated. I want it out of my hands. I want them gone. Can you do it?" I heard him sigh, the sound of a man who was about to make a lot of money on a very sad case. A cash offer as is closing in 7 days. Yes, Thomas. I can do that. I'll make the calls first thing in the morning. Good, I said. Send all the paperwork to my new address. New address. I was already pulling my old suitcase from the top of the closet. That's right. As of tonight, I'm honoring my daughter's request. I'm getting out. At 5:30 in the morning, the house was dark and silent. I had not slept. I packed one suitcase. A few good shirts, my toiletries, the leather folder with the trust documents, and the framed photo of Caroline. Everything else could stay. I walked through the house one last time. The kitchen was clean. I'd washed my own plate. I went to the small desk by the window where I paid my bills. I found a notepad. I wrote Emily and Mark, I need a few days to think about your request. I'll be at a friend's house, chum. Dad. I left it on the kitchen counter right where the electric bill had been. I let myself out the front door, the same door I had carried my daughter through when she was a baby, wrapped in a pink blanket. I didn't look back. The taxi I had ordered was waiting at the corner. Where to, sir? The driver asked. The Four Seasons, downtown. The driver raised an eyebrow in the rearview mirror looking at my simple suitcase and my old man jacket, but he nodded and pulled into the pre-dawn traffic. By 6:15, I was checking into a $300 a night room overlooking Lady Bird Lake. The concierge was polite. The room was quiet. I ordered coffee and oatmeal from room service, and for the first time in 5 years, I felt a strange, cold peace. I was no longer a caretaker. I was no longer a burden. I was just a man in a hotel room about to become very, very rich. I let a day pass. I knew the note would satisfy them. They would think I was weak, scared, trying to figure out how to scrape together their extortion money. They would feel powerful. They would feel in control. That was fine. Let them have their moment. My phone buzzed. A text from Emily. Dad, where are you? Call me. I ignored it. Another text. Dad, this isn't funny. We're worried. I ignored that too. I was busy. I was on the phone with Henderson. Henderson, I said, looking out at the kayakers on the lake below. I need one more thing. I need to know why. This isn't just greed. This is desperation. I heard it in their voices. They're trying to con me out of my house and they're scared. I was already looking into it, Henderson said. He was a good lawyer. I have a private investigator on retainer. He's very discreet. Give me 48 hours. 48 hours. The exact amount of time it would take for the cash offers on the house to start rolling in. The next day I turned my phone off. I went for a walk around the lake. I visited the Blanton Museum of Art. I ate a 12-ounce steak at a restaurant Caroline and I used to love for our anniversaries. I was a ghost in my own city, invisible. I was just what Emily and Mark thought. I was an old man with nowhere to go. But I was an old man with a plan. On Thursday afternoon, Henderson called the hotel room's landline. I picked up. Thomas, I have the report from the investigator. And it's bad. It's worse than you thought. I sat down. Tell me. His voice was grim. Mark wasn't laid off from his tech job 8 months ago. He was fired. For cause. What cause? The investigator is calling it financial irregularities. My source says it's embezzlement. $50,000. The company hasn't filed criminal charges yet. They gave him a deadline to pay it back. That deadline, Thomas, is the end of this month. 50,000. The exact amount of Mark's networking golf clubs and Emily's new diamond necklace multiplied by 10. So they're broke, I said. Worse than broke. They're drowning. The investigator ran their credit. They are $210,000 in debt. Maxed out credit cards. 2 luxury car loans on cars they can't possibly afford. They've missed 3 payments on Emily's BMW. They're living on fumes and borrowed time. It all snapped into focus. The desperation, the aggression, the ultimatum. They weren't just trying to get rent from me, I said, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. No, Henderson said. The $5,000 rent was just the stick. They had a carrot. What carrot? Emily called my office yesterday pretending to be a concerned daughter. She was asking hypothetical questions. She wanted to know what kind of documents a father would need to sign to let his daughter help him manage his assets. She was asking about adding her name to the deed. I closed my eyes. They were trying to get me to sign papers, I whispered. They were going to get you to sign a quitclaim deed or a power of attorney. They would have used that to take out a fraudulent mortgage on your house, pay off the embezzlement before Mark gets arrested, and pay off their credit cards. They would have bled the house dry and left you with the debt. My own daughter, my Emily, she wasn't just trying to extort me. She was trying to frame me. She was trying to steal my entire life to save her worthless husband from prison. Thank you, Henderson, I said. My voice was calm. The ice in my veins was spreading. That's all I needed to know. Thomas, he said, a rare note of concern in his voice. We have the offer. $940,000, cash, from Austin Property Ventures. They can close in 5 days. Are you sure you want to do this? I looked at the phone. I thought of Caroline. I thought of the $210,000. I thought of the $50,000 Mark stole. Do it, Henderson, I said. Sell it. Sell it all. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time. My house was silent again. The triumphant whispers from the kitchen had faded. I heard the scrape of chairs, the sound of the television turning on in the living room. They were settling in for the night, comfortable and victorious, having just put their lonely old man in his place. My hands were perfectly steady. The shock was gone. The pain was still there, a cold, heavy stone where my heart used to be, but it was no longer grief. It was fuel. I picked up my phone. My thumb hovered over Emily's name. I thought about calling her, about trying one last time to appeal to the daughter I had raised. But what was the point? The person who had given me that ultimatum was not my daughter. She was a stranger. I scrolled past Emily. I scrolled past my son Leo. My finger stopped on H. Henderson. I pressed the call button. I listened to the rings, crisp and digital in the silence of the room. He picked up on the third ring exactly as he always did. Henderson Legal. This is Mr. Henderson speaking. His voice was the same as it was 10 years ago in that high-rise office, precise, cold, and expensive. Henderson, I said. My voice was quiet, but it didn't tremble. It's Thomas Vance. There was a half-second pause as his mind, sharp as a steel trap, pulled up my file from its archives. Thomas, it has been a long time. I trust you are well given the circumstances of our last meeting. The circumstances were Caroline's funeral and the final execution of her will. I'm as well as can be, Henderson. I'm calling about the trust, Caroline's trust. Of course, he said, all business. Is there an issue with the distributions for Leo? I understood everything was proceeding smoothly. Leo is fine, I said. This is about the primary asset. It's time. I want you to sell the Austin house. The silence on the other end of the line was profound. I had finally, after a decade of predictable stability, managed to surprise him. I could picture him in his dark wood-paneled office, leaning back in his leather chair, adjusting his gold-rimmed glasses as he looked out over the Austin skyline. Thomas, sell the house, he finally said. His voice had lost its bored professional cadence. What has happened? You know the terms of the trust are clear. You have lifetime rights to reside. You are the sole trustee. But selling it, that's a major liquidation. It's the primary asset in the portfolio. I am aware of the terms, Henderson. I read them every year. I am the trustee. and I am instructing you as the legal counsel for the trust to sell the asset." "Okay," he said slowly, the gears in his legal mind shifting. "Okay, legally, you can. You have the authority. But practically, Thomas, you must understand we cannot just sell it. Your daughter and her husband are living there. They have established residency." "They are tenants at will," I corrected him, using the exact phrase he and Caroline had taught me. "They pay no rent. They have no lease." "Exactly." Henderson's voice sharpened. "Which makes it more complicated, not less. Under Texas law, we must give them a formal, written 30-day notice to vacate. They can, and based on everything I know about contentious family disputes, they will contest it. They can claim hardship. They can claim you're not mentally competent to make this decision. They can drag this out in the eviction courts for months, Thomas. Maybe a year or more." He took a breath, letting the bad news sink in. "And no one will buy $1 million property with hostile occupants currently living in it. We would have to get them out first. It's a long, ugly public process. It could take forever." I listened patiently to his entirely correct and logical assessment. He was a good lawyer. He saw all the problems, but he didn't have the solution. I did. "They won't be a problem," I said. "Thomas, you're not listening to me. They are the problem. You can't just kick your daughter out onto the street. The optics are terrible and the legal fight will be—" "Henderson," I interrupted. My voice was different now. It was not the voice of a grieving client. It was the voice of the man who ran a 50-person construction crew for 40 years. The voice of a boss. "An hour ago, my daughter informed me that I am, in her words, just a boarder in this house. She then gave me an ultimatum. Pay $5,000 a month in rent by the first of the month, or get out." Her exact words, Henderson, were pay or get out. The silence that followed was absolute. "She—" "What?" he finally whispered. "She just tried to extort her landlord, Henderson. She just gave the trustee of the property notice to vacate." I heard him exhale a long, slow whistle. "My God, Thomas. I'm sorry." "Don't be," I said, and I was surprised to find I meant it. "This clarifies things. It makes the decision clean. But you're right about one thing. I cannot wait months. I don't want to fight them in court. I don't want open houses. I don't want a for sale sign on the lawn that they will deface. I want this done fast, and I want it done silently." "What are you proposing?" he asked. "A private sale?" "No," I said. "I'm not selling it on the market. I am not dealing with staging or repairs or waiting for the right buyer to get their financing in order. I want you to call an iBuyer, an investment firm, Austin Property Ventures. Open Door Zillow offers. I don't care who. I want a cash offer as is sight unseen. I want it closed in 7 days." Henderson actually sputtered. "Thomas, that's insane. You'll take a massive hit. They'll offer you 15, maybe 20% below market value just for the convenience. The house is worth $1.1 million easily. You'll be lucky to get $950. You're throwing away over $150,000. $940,000, I said. "What? I will take $940. I will not take a penny less, but I will take that. I don't care about the money, Henderson. I care about the principle, as my son-in-law is so fond of saying. I want this asset liquidated. I want it out of my hands. I want them out of my house. Can you do it?" There was another long pause. I heard the faint click of his mouse. He was already looking up the firms. "A cash offer as is closing in 7 days contingent on vacant possession, which the new owners will handle," he mused, thinking aloud. "It's clean, it's brutal, and it's fast. Yes, Thomas, I can do that. I'll make the calls first thing in the morning. I can probably have 3 offers for you by noon." "Good," I said. I stood up the suitcase in my hand. "Send all the paperwork to my new address." "New address. That's right," I said. I walked to my bedroom door and listened. The TV was loud, a stupid sitcom. They were laughing. As of tonight, I'm honoring my daughter's request. I'm getting out. At 5:30 in the morning, the house was black and silent. I had not slept. I stood in the darkness of my room, my old suitcase already packed by the door. One suitcase. That's all I would take. The rest of it, the furniture I had built, the books Caroline and I had collected, the life we had shared, it was all just stuff. It was the past, and they could have it. I opened my door, wincing at the faint click of the latch. I stood in the hallway listening. From their bedroom down the hall, I heard the faint rhythmic sound of Mark's snoring. They were asleep, dreaming perhaps of the $5,000 they would soon be collecting, dreaming of how they would spend it. I walked silently through the house. I went into the kitchen where Caroline and I had taught Emily to bake her first batch of cookies. The kitchen where just 12 hours ago that same Emily had threatened to throw me out onto the street. I found a notepad by the phone, the one we used to use for grocery lists. My hand was steady as I wrote the note. Emily and Mark, I wrote. I need a few days to think about your request. I'll be at a friend's house. Dad. A friend's house. The lie was simple, believable. They would think I was weak, scared, perhaps staying on some old army buddy's couch trying to figure out how to scrape together their extortion money. They would feel powerful. They would feel in control. That was fine. Let them have their moment. I placed the note squarely in the center of the kitchen counter, right where the electric bill had been. I let myself out the front door, the same door I had carried my daughter through when she was a baby, wrapped in a pink blanket. I didn't lock it with the deadbolt. Why bother? It wasn't my house anymore. I pulled the door shut, and the final quiet click was the sound of a 45-year chapter of my life ending. The taxi I had ordered was waiting at the corner just as I'd requested. The driver didn't say a word as I put my single bag in the trunk and got into the back seat. "Where to, sir?" he asked, his voice tired in the pre-dawn darkness. "The Four Seasons, downtown." I saw his eyes flick up to the rearview mirror. He was looking at my old man jacket, my simple suitcase, my worn face. He was contrasting it with the destination. I said nothing. He just nodded and pulled away from the curb. I didn't look back. At 6:15, the lobby of the Four Seasons was quiet, smelling of expensive lilies and old money. The concierge, a young woman in a sharp suit, smiled politely. "Checking in, sir." I walked up to the marble desk. "Yes, the name is Thomas Vance. I have a reservation." She typed. "Ah, yes, Mr. Vance, welcome. The Executive King Suite on the 10th floor. We have you down for 1 week with the option to extend." "That's correct," I said. I pulled out my wallet. Not the one Emily and Mark always saw, the old cracked leather one I used for groceries. This was a different one. I handed her a simple, heavy black credit card. She took it, and I saw her professionalism flicker for just a second. She recognized it. Her smile became warmer, more genuine. "Of course, Mr. Vance. We will have a bellman take your bag." "No, thank you," I said. "I can manage it." The room was perfect, quiet, impersonal. It had a sweeping view of Lady Bird Lake as the sun began to turn the sky a pale, bruised purple. This room cost more per night than the first apartment Caroline and I ever rented. I ordered coffee and oatmeal from room service. I sat by the window watching the kayakers already slicing through the water below. And for the first time in 5 years since Caroline had been gone, I felt a strange, cold peace. I was no longer a caretaker. I was no longer a burden. I was just a man in a very expensive hotel room about to liquidate an asset. I let a day pass. I knew the note would satisfy them. My phone buzzed around noon on that first day. A text from Emily. "Dad, where are you?" "Call me." I ignored it. An hour later. "Dad, this isn't funny. We're worried about you." I almost laughed. Worried. They were worried I was finding a backbone. They were worried I was finding a way out of paying them. I ignored that too. I was busy. I was on the phone with Henderson. The offers are in, he said, his voice all business. Silo offered $890. Open Door came in at $910. But Austin Property Ventures came in strong. $940,000. Cash. They can close in 5 days. Take it, I said. Done, he replied. I'll have the digital paperwork sent to your hotel email immediately. But Thomas, there's something else. You asked me to find out why. You said it was desperation. You were right. I held the phone tighter. Tell me. I put my private investigator on it. He's very discreet, very fast. He pulled their credit reports, or what's left of them. Thomas, they are $210,000 in debt. I closed my eyes. 200 maxed out credit cards, 2 luxury car loans on vehicles they couldn't possibly afford. Emily's BMW, Mark's leased truck. They've missed 3 payments on her car. It's about to be repossessed. They're living on fumes and borrowed time. They've been taking out high-interest payday loans to cover the minimum payments on their credit cards. It's a house of cards that's about to collapse. It all snapped into focus. The desperation, the aggression, the ultimatum. They didn't just want $5,000. $5,000 was a drop in the bucket. They needed more than rent, I said, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. Exactly, Henderson said. The $5,000 rent was just the stick. They had a carrot. What carrot? My investigator found out that Emily called my office yesterday. She didn't talk to me, she talked to a junior associate. She was pretending to be a concerned daughter. She was asking hypothetical questions. My blood ran cold. What hypothetical questions? She wanted to know what kind of documents a father would need to sign to let his loving daughter help him manage his assets. She was asking about adding her name to the deed, about co-signing on a home equity line of credit. I sank down onto the edge of the king-sized bed. They were trying to get me to sign papers, I whispered. They were going to get you to sign a quitclaim deed or a power of attorney, Thomas. They would have used that to take out a fraudulent mortgage on your house. They would have bled the equity dry, paid off their debts, and left you and the trust holding the bag. My own daughter. My Emily. She wasn't just trying to extort me. She was trying to frame me. She was trying to steal my entire life's work. And then Henderson delivered the final killing blow. There's one more thing, he said. His voice was grim. Mark. He wasn't laid off from his tech job 8 months ago. He was fired. For cause. What cause? The investigator is calling it financial irregularities. My source inside the company says it's embezzlement. $50,000, Thomas. The company hasn't filed criminal charges yet. They gave him a quiet deadline to pay it all back. That deadline, Thomas, is the end of this month. $50,000. The exact amount of Mark's networking golf clubs and Emily's new diamond necklace multiplied by 10. They weren't just trying to pay their credit cards. They were trying to keep Mark out of prison. My own daughter was willing to destroy her father to save her worthless criminal husband. Thank you, Henderson, I said. My voice was ice. The last bit of warmth, the last flickering ember of love I had for the woman Emily had become just went out. That's all I needed to know. Thomas, he said, a rare note of concern in his voice. We have the offer. $940,000. It's real. They're wiring the earnest money. Are you absolutely sure you want to pull this trigger? I looked out the window at the setting sun, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and blood red. I thought of Caroline. I thought of the $50,000 Mark stole. I thought of the $210,000 of debt. I thought of my daughter, my little girl, trying to con me into signing away my home. Do it, Henderson, I said. Send me the papers. I'll sign them tonight. Sell it. Sell it all. My phone had been silent for 36 hours. I had ignored the first few texts. Dad, where are you? Dad, this isn't funny. Dad, we're worried. I let them simmer. I let them sit in the house they thought they had just conquered, wondering where their new tenant, their new $5,000 a month income stream, had gone. I was in my suite at the Four Seasons eating a $9 croissant from room service, which was by my estimation about 900% better than the stale bread they kept in the kitchen. I was comfortable. I was patient. I knew they weren't really worried about me. They were worried about the money. The phone rang on Friday afternoon. I let it ring 3 times, just long enough. I picked up. Hello? Daddy. The voice. It wasn't the cold, hard-edged voice of the stranger in my kitchen. This was a different voice. This was the high, breathy little girl voice. The one she used when she was 12 and wanted a new bicycle. The one she used in college when she needed money for spring break. It was a performance, and it turned my stomach. Daddy, oh thank God. Where are you? We've been going out of our minds. Are you okay? Are you safe? I'm fine, Emily, I said. My voice was intentionally flat, tired. I'm at Bill's house. Bill Murdoch from the old crew. Bill had been dead for 3 years, but Emily wouldn't know that. She never paid attention. Oh, Dad, thank goodness, she breathed. The relief in her voice was palpable. Listen, I am so sorry about the other night. I don't know what got into me. Mark and I, we were just so stressed. We were horrible. We didn't mean any of it. I said nothing. I let the silence stretch. You didn't mean it, I thought. You didn't mean to threaten a 67-year-old man with homelessness. You didn't mean to call him a bitter old man. Got it. Dad, are you there? It was intense, Emily, I finally said. I know, and we want to make it right. Please come home. We don't want your money, Dad. Forget the $5,000. That was stupid. It was just Mark being stressed, you know how he gets. We just want you home. We miss you. The house is so empty without you. I looked around my magnificent empty hotel suite. It's empty because I'm not there to cook your dinner, Emily. It's empty because you're worried your ATM just got up and walked out of the bank. That's nice of you to say, Emily, I replied. I could hear her take a shaky breath, the next part of her script loading. And we were talking. And the reason we've been so stressed, it's just finances. You know. Oh, here it comes, I thought, settling back into the plush armchair. Here comes the $210,000 question. Things have just been tight, she continued, her voice full of fake vulnerability. Mark's new consulting project hasn't really taken off yet, and my online commissions are slow. And this house, it's a wonderful house, Dad, but it's old. Old, I thought. I just remodeled the master bathroom in 2021. I put in those quartz countertops for you myself last year. It's not old, it's just not liquid. Mark and I were talking to a financial advisor, she said. Just a friend. And he was looking at our situation. He said we are house rich but cash poor. Isn't that a funny way to put it? Hilarious, I said. But he had this brilliant idea. He said, Dad, the house is paid off, right? You know it is, I said. I paid it off the year you graduated high school. Right. That's the amazing part, she gushed as if this was a new discovery. All that, what did he call it, equity. It's just sitting there, locked up, doing nothing. He said we could take out a tiny loan, just a simple home equity line of credit. A HELOC. He said it's super common, everyone does it. A loan, I repeated, playing dumb. Against my house. Yes, she said, rushing now, selling it hard. But it's a good thing. We could finally fix that little patch on the roof, and maybe update the plumbing in the guest bath. And, you know, while we're at it, we could pay off a few of our high-interest credit cards. It would just free us up so much. It would take all the stress away. It wouldn't cost you a penny, Dad. We would make all the payments. 100%. We promise. I closed my eyes. Pay off credit cards. Pay off $210,000. Pay off the $50,000 Mark embezzled before he ends up in a cell. That's a few high-interest cards, all right. They'd strip the equity out of this house so fast, it would make your head spin. And when they defaulted, because they would default, the bank would come for the house. My house. Caroline's house. The house that legally belongs to their brother. Emily, I said, letting just the right amount of weary confusion enter my voice. I don't know anything about those kinds of loans. A line of credit. That sounds complicated. It sounds dangerous. Your mother never wanted debt on this house. Ever. I heard her frustrated sigh, quickly covered by a cough. No, Dad, it's not dangerous. It's smart. It's what people do. It's just paperwork. The only thing is, because the house is in your name, we need you to sign the papers. Sign. Yes, just to authorize it. That's all. It's just a signature. Mark and I would handle everything. All the payments we promise. We could even go to the bank tomorrow. Can you come home tonight so we can go tomorrow? There it was. The desperation. The deadline for Mark's embezzlement must be getting close. They need this. They need my signature. This was the moment. I couldn't say no or they'd panic and do something even more stupid. I couldn't say yes because I wasn't coming home. I had to buy time. Henderson needed 3 more days for the sale to close. Emily, honey, I said, letting my voice crack just a little. That's just a lot to think about. A new loan. Against the house, I'm still at Bill's. I'm still just processing. Everything you said. About the rent. About me. Getting out. My head is just spinning. I can't think about banks right now. I heard her exhale on the other end of the line. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated relief. He didn't say no. He's weak. He's confused. He's pliable. We got him. Oh, of course, Dad, she cooed. You're right. I'm so sorry. We're rushing you. You're right. You take your time. Take a few days. We completely understand. The sale of the house closes in 3 days, I thought. They don't have a few days. Just don't take too long, okay? She added, the anxiety creeping back in. The financial advisor. He said the low interest rates are only available for a limited time. And, Dad. Her voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. Mark is he's really struggling. We're both struggling. We really need this. Please. This was my cue. I let the silence stretch for 10 full seconds. I let her sweat. I'll think about it, Emily, I said finally. I promise, I need the weekend. I'll call you. I'll call you by Sunday. Okay, Dad, yes, Sunday is perfect, she said, victorious. Thank you. Thank you so much. You won't regret this. We love you. We love you so much. Goodbye, Emily, I said. I hung up the phone. I stared at it as if it were a snake. We love you so much. The words echoed in the silent, luxurious room. They were the biggest lie of all. I picked up the hotel phone and dialed Henderson's direct line. "She took the bait," I said, without even a hello. "They're trying to get me to sign a HELOC. They're desperate. How fast is that closing?" "The wire transfer for the earnest money just came through from Austin Property Ventures," Henderson replied, his voice calm. "I'm sending the final documents to your hotel by courier right now. You sign them, he signs them. The deal will be officially closed and filed with the county by 9 a.m. Monday." Monday. Emily was expecting a call on Sunday. They were going to have a very, very bad start to their week. My phone call with Emily on Friday morning had been the final piece of the puzzle. I now understood their desperation. Mark's deadline to repay the $50,000 he embezzled was looming. My signature on a fraudulent loan was their only way out. They weren't just greedy, they were cornered animals. And cornered animals are stupid, but they are also dangerous. My promise to call them on Sunday gave them what they craved most: hope. It gave them a timeline. It made them feel like their plan was working. It would keep them quiet for the weekend. It was all the time I needed. The hotel landline rang at precisely 2 p.m., just as Henderson had promised. I had spent the day in the hotel's quiet business center, not on a computer, but on the phone, transferring portions of my personal savings into different, more secure accounts, just in case. I picked up the receiver. "Thomas Vance?" "Thomas, it's Henderson. I made the calls. I told them exactly what you said. We have a highly motivated seller, needs an immediate all-cash as-is closing. No inspections, no contingencies. The sharks are circling." "Good," I said, looking out the window. "Let them circle." "The market is hot, so the lowball offers weren't as low as I feared," Henderson said. His voice was all business. "Zillow offers came in at $890. Open Door was better at $910. They're all trying to hedge banking on our desperation." "And Austin Property Ventures?" I asked. I knew their reputation. They were the biggest, fastest, and most ruthless iBuyers in the state. "They came in at $940,000, Henderson said. "Cash, no inspections, no repairs. They can wire the earnest money in 1 hour and close in 5 business days." "Thomas, I have to advise you, this is a significant discount. The house, even with the occupants, is worth $1.1 million. That's $160,000 you are leaving on the table." I did the math in my head. $160,000. It was a lot of money. But what was it really? It was the price of freedom. It was the price of justice. It was the price of not spending the next year of my life in court fighting an eviction battle against my own daughter. It was the cost of removing a cancer. $160,000, I said. "That's a bargain, Henderson." He sighed. I knew he hated it on principle. "You're the client. You're the trustee. The decision is yours." "Take it," I said. "940. Tell them yes. Close the deal. Send me the papers." "All right," Henderson said, the resignation clear in his voice. "I'll draw up the purchase agreement immediately. They'll want to sign fast. This isn't something we do over DocuSign, Thomas. This is a multi-signature trust liquidation. You'll need to come to the office. The buyers will send their representative." "When?" "They want to move before the weekend. How about this afternoon, 3 o'clock? "I'll be there," I said, and hung up. I walked to the closet in my suite. I pushed past the wrinkled shirt and khaki pants I had worn when I left the house. The costume of the simple old man. Behind them in a garment bag was my armor. Emily and Mark had only ever seen me as a widower in faded jeans, a man who fixed garbage disposals and mowed his own lawn. They had never bothered to ask what I did for 45 years before I retired. They never wondered why even in retirement I still had my suits professionally dry cleaned. They never wondered why I kept a pair of polished Allen Edmonds shoes in the back of my closet. They saw what they wanted to see: a burden, a wallet, an obstacle. I put on a crisp white shirt. I tied the knot on a simple dark blue silk tie. I put on the navy blue suit, the one I had tailored in '98, and which still fit perfectly. I slipped the heavy gold Omega watch onto my wrist. It had been Caroline's last gift to me. "For the man who manages the world," the inscription read. I looked in the mirror. The sad, confused boarder from the kitchen was gone. The man looking back at me was Thomas Vance, the man who had run a 50-person construction crew for 40 years, the man who had built half the bridges in this county, the man Caroline had trusted with everything, the trustee. I took a cab to Henderson's office building downtown. The lobby was a symphony of glass, steel, and quiet, expensive artwork. This was Caroline's world, the quiet hum of money, the smell of expensive leather and floor wax. I had always been the man who worked with sawdust and sweat. She was the one who understood this quiet, unshakable power. She had left it for me. She knew. She somehow knew that one day I would need it. The elevator opened onto the 40th floor. The receptionist looked up from her screen. "May I help you, sir?" "Thomas Vance. I have a 3 o'clock appointment with Mr. Henderson." Her eyes widened slightly. She recognized the name. "Of course, Mr. Vance, right this way. Mr. Henderson is expecting you." Henderson met me at the door of his conference room. He was wearing his usual 3-piece suit. He looked at my attire and nodded a small, sad smile on his face. "Thomas, you look well." "I feel focused, Henderson," I said. "Let's get this done." The conference room was massive. A single polished mahogany table reflected the Austin skyline like a dark mirror. At the far end sat a young man. He couldn't have been more than 30. He wore a suit that probably cost more than my first car, and he smelled of ambition and expensive cologne. He was exactly the kind of shark I had been expecting. "Thomas," Henderson said. "This is Mr. Cade from Austin Property Ventures. He's here to sign on behalf of the buyers." Cade stood up and extended a manicured hand. He had a politician's smile. "Mr. Vance, a pleasure. We're very happy to be doing this business with you. We want to guarantee a smooth, respectful transition." "I appreciate the speed, Mr. Cade," I said, my voice firm. "Smooth is exactly what I'm looking for." We sat. Henderson, the consummate professional, began the ceremony. He slid a stack of documents at least an inch thick in front of me. "Thomas, this is the main purchase agreement. It stipulates the $940,000 price, all cash. This is the as-is rider stating the property is sold in its current condition." He tapped another page. "This is the waiver of inspection. This confirms the buyers are responsible for all contents left in the home after closing. And this—" He paused, his eyes meeting mine. "This is the most important part. This rider confirms that the property is currently occupied and that the buyer's Austin Property Ventures will assume all legal and financial responsibility for occupant removal and any associated legal costs indemnifying the trust from all future claims." Occupant removal. That's what Emily and Mark were now. Just a line item in a contract. A legal problem for Mr. Cade's firm to solve. "I understand," I said. Henderson handed me the pen. It was a heavy gold-plated fountain pen. "Sign here, Thomas. And here. And here." I looked at the signature line. It didn't say Thomas Vance. It said, "By Thomas Vance, sole trustee." I took the pen. The nib scratched quietly against the thick paper. The ink flowed black and permanent. I signed the name I had not used in 5 years, the name that held all the power. Thomas Vance, sole trustee of the Caroline Vance Thomas Irrevocable Trust. I signed away the kitchen where Emily had taken her first steps. I signed away the backyard where I had taught her to ride a bike. I signed away the bedroom where my wife of 45 years had died in my arms. I felt nothing. Nothing but the cold, clean satisfaction of a job well done, a problem being solved. I pushed the stack of papers across the polished table. Mr. Cade didn't even read them. He already knew what they said. He simply opened his own folder and began to sign his own name, a quick, sharp signature that looked like a spike. He stood up, his smile perfectly in place. He shook my hand again. "A pleasure, Mr. Vance. The funds will be wired to the trust account within 48 hours per the agreement. Our legal team will handle the rest." "Thank you, Mr. Cade," I said. He nodded at Henderson and was gone. The entire transaction had taken less than 15 minutes. 15 minutes to erase 40 years of my life. Henderson began gathering his copies, stacking them into neat piles. "It's finished, Thomas," he said. He looked at me, his eyes not unkind. "The house is no longer yours. It belongs to them. The wire transfer will complete the sale." "And the occupants?" I asked. "They are no longer your concern," Henderson said, closing a folder with a definitive thump. "They are Mr. Cade's concern. And I can assure you, Austin Property Ventures is not known for its sentimentality. They are not family. They will not listen to excuses about emotional labor or stress. They will be ruthlessly efficient." "Ruthlessly efficient," I repeated. "I like the sound of that." I stood up. I buttoned my suit jacket. "Thank you, Henderson. You've done exactly as I asked. Send the final confirmation to my hotel." "Thomas," he said, stopping me at the door, "what will you do now?" I thought about his question as I rode the silent, wood-paneled elevator down 40 floors. What would I do? For the first time in 5 years, the answer wasn't wait. The answer wasn't survive. I stepped out of the building onto the busy Austin street. The sun was bright. The air was warm. I was a 67-year-old man without a house. I was a man with $940,000 in liquid cash that my children knew nothing about. And I was a man with a phone call to expect on Sunday from a daughter who had just lost everything and didn't even know it yet. I smiled. I spent that Friday in a state of strange, cold suspension. The ink on the closing documents I had signed at Henderson's office was dry. The decision was made. The wire transfer from Austin Property Ventures was in progress. I was back in my suite at the Four Seasons, a fortress of anonymity looking down at the city of Austin. I was a man who had just lit a very long fuse, and now I was simply waiting to hear it hiss. My cell phone, the one Emily knew, buzzed twice on the marble-topped desk. I didn't have to look. I knew it was her. The first text at 2 p.m. read, "Dad, are you okay? Just checking in. We love you." "We love you." The words were so cheap, so easy for her to type. They were a currency she spent thinking it would buy my signature, my house, my life's work. The second text, 3 hours later, was more urgent. "Dad, please call me. We really need to talk about the bank stuff for Sunday. Call me." I ignored it. Sunday. That was her deadline. The day she expected me to crawl back to the house defeated, confused, and ready to sign her fraudulent loan papers. She was looking forward to Sunday. She was probably already planning how they would spend the money, how they would celebrate keeping Mark out of prison. I was looking forward to Saturday. At exactly 5 p.m., as the Texas sun began to bleed across the horizon, the hotel landline rang. Not my cell phone. The hotel phone. That meant it was Henderson. I let it ring once, twice, a sharp, clean sound in the quiet room. I took a slow breath, smoothed the front of my shirt, and picked up the heavy receiver. "Thomas Vance." "Thomas, it's Henderson." His voice was different. It wasn't the voice of a lawyer advising a client full of cautions and what-ifs. It was the voice of a man reporting a completed task. "It's done," he said. I closed my eyes. Define done, Henderson. The wire transfer from Austin Property Ventures cleared the trust's bank account at 4:37 p.m. The title company filed the deed electronically with Travis County. As of this moment, you no longer own the house on Willow Creek Drive. It belongs to them. The deal is closed. It is final, and more importantly, it is irrevocable. Irrevocable. The same word Carolyn had insisted on for the trust all those years ago. It was poetic. Thank you, Henderson. You've done well. Wait. Thomas, there's more, he said. You wanted to know what happens next. You wanted to know about the occupant removal. I just got off the phone with Mr. Cade's legal team from Austin Property Ventures. And? I asked, walking to the window. And? Henderson said, I have to say I'm almost impressed by their efficiency. I used the word ruthless before. I was not exaggerating. He paused as if pulling up his notes. These investment companies don't like assets sitting idle. For them, every day the house isn't being renovated and prepped for resale is a day they're losing money to interest. They don't wait. They don't negotiate. This was exactly what I had paid for. The $160,000 I'd left on the table was a fee for speed, a fee for emotional detachment. What does that mean exactly? I asked, though I already knew. It means they are not waiting until Monday. They are not waiting for the business week. They are sending a process server to the house, tomorrow morning, Saturday, at 9 a.m. sharp. Tomorrow. My heart gave a single hard thump against my ribs. They are serving your daughter and son-in-law with a formal legal notice to vacate. I knew what that meant. I'd seen those notices on abandoned properties my crews had worked on. A bright glaring orange sticker slapped onto the front door. A public declaration of failure for the whole neighborhood to see. The very neighbors Emily was so desperate to impress. How long, cuss? I asked. How long does the notice give them? That's the beauty of the law, Thomas, Henderson said. The law you and Caroline set up. Emily and Mark are not on a lease. They have never paid rent. They are not formal tenants. They are tenants at will, guests. And in the state of Texas, the notice period for a tenant at will from a new owner who wishes to occupy is exactly 3 days. 3 days, 72 hours. They would get the notice at 9 a.m. on Saturday. They would have until 9 a.m. on Tuesday. And what happens on Tuesday? I asked, wanting to hear the words, wanting to make it real. At 9:01 a.m. on Tuesday, Henderson said, his voice a flat legal razor, Austin Property Ventures will have a Travis County constable and a locksmith on the premises. They will remove your daughter, your son-in-law, and their possessions from the property, by force if necessary, and they will change the locks. I was silent. I looked out the window. The sun was setting a deep, perfect, painful shade of Texas violet. The city lights were just beginning to glitter. Thomas, are you still there? I'm here, I said. 3 days. That's efficient. It's what you wanted, he said, not unkindly. The asset is liquidated. The funds are secure. The problem is being handled. Yes, I said. Yes, it is. I will send you the final closing statements by courier. The trust is now liquid. We should talk next week about reinvesting the capital. Perhaps some municipal bonds. Next week, Henderson, I said gently. Let's get through the weekend first. Of course, Thomas. Call me if you need anything. I will. And thank you for everything. For honoring Caroline's wishes. I always do, he said, and hung up. I put the phone down. It was done. 9 a.m. tomorrow. In approximately 16 hours, Emily and Mark would be waking up. They'd be making their coffee. They'd be relaxed, secure in the knowledge that their lonely old man was off somewhere confused and weak, stewing in his juices, getting ready to cave on Sunday. They would be discussing the loan. They would be planning how to spend the $50,000 to keep Mark out of jail. They would be planning how to spend the other $200,000. They would be sitting in my kitchen at my table planning my financial ruin. And then the doorbell would ring. A man in a cheap suit would be standing on the porch I built. He would hand them an envelope, and their entire world would end. I walked over to the minibar in my suite. I found a small, expensive bottle of Macallan 18. I poured 2 fingers into a heavy glass. I raised it to the empty room, to the reflection of the man in the window. "To you, Caroline," I whispered. "You magnificent, brilliant woman. You always knew." I took a sip. The whiskey burned, but it was a good, clean fire. The clock on the wall started ticking. Saturday morning, 9 a.m. I was sitting in the plush armchair by the window of my suite at the Four Seasons. The room was silent, perfect. The city of Austin was quiet below me. I had already had my oatmeal and a pot of Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee. It was hot, black, and strong. I looked at the clock on the wall. 9:01. I pictured the scene across town. The quiet, tree-lined street. The mailman wouldn't even be there for another hour. But Mr. Cade's process server would be. I envisioned him walking up the pathway I had laid with my own hands, past the rose bushes Caroline had planted. 9:02. I wondered if Mark was still asleep, cocooned in the $1,000 mattress I had paid for. Emily was probably in her expensive workout clothes, drinking a kale smoothie she had bought with my grocery money. 9:03. Any second now. The doorbell would ring. They would be annoyed, expecting an Amazon package they'd have to sign for probably another one of Mark's business expenses. But it wouldn't be a package. It would be a man in a cheap suit, carrying a very important envelope. 9:05 a.m. My cell phone sitting on the polished mahogany desk vibrated. The screen lit up Emily. I smiled. Right on schedule. I let it vibrate. Once. Twice. I took another slow, deliberate sip of my coffee. It was excellent. On the 3rd ring, I picked up the phone. I didn't say hello. I just pressed the button and waited, listening. It wasn't a word. It was a sound. A shriek. A high-pitched guttural noise I hadn't heard since she was 3 years old and had fallen off the swing set at the park. It was the sound of pure, unadulterated, blind-sided terror. "Dad! Dad, where are you? Oh my God! Dad, please, where are you?" "Emily," I said. I injected the perfect amount of sleepy old man confusion into my voice. "Emily, what's wrong? What's happened? Are you okay?" "A man!" she screamed, her voice cracking. "A man was just here. He rang the bell and he stuck a paper on our door. He stuck it on the door, Dad." "A paper?" Emily, slow down. "I don't understand." "What, a flyer, a pizza menu?" I was playing the part she had cast for me, the confused, senile old man who just didn't get it. "No!" she shrieked. "Not a flyer. It's orange. It's a bright orange sticker and it's... Oh my God. Oh my God." I heard her start to hyperventilate. I heard Mark yelling in the background, his voice muffled and thick with sleep. "What is it? What the hell is it?" Emily read it. "It says," she sobbed, completely losing control. "It says notice to vacate. It says we have to be out. It says Austin Property Ventures. Who is Austin Property Ventures? Dad, who are they?" "The new owners," I thought, taking another calm sip of coffee. "The new, ruthlessly efficient owners." I don't know, honey," I said, faking a stammer. "I've never heard of them. Are you sure? Maybe it's a mistake? Maybe it's for the neighbors." "It has our address on it, Dad. It says current occupants. It says the house was sold. It says we have 72 hours, Dad. Or they're calling the constable Dad." "What did you do?" There it was. The accusation. Not what happened. Not how can we fix this, but what did you do? The cognitive leap from we are in trouble to this is your fault was instantaneous. That was my daughter. Never responsible. Always a victim. "Emily, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm at Bill's house, I told you. How could I sell the house? That's crazy talk." I heard a violent sound, a fumbling, and then Mark's voice was in my ear, roaring. You old bastard, he bellowed. You did this. You think this is funny. You're trying to scare us because of the rent. Well, it's not funny. You call off your fake lawyers right now. You hear me? Fake lawyers, I asked. Mark, I don't have any lawyers. I'm just an old man. Remember, nowhere to go. No one to help me. Don't you play dumb with me, he raged. Emily said you were acting weird. This is some sick, twisted game. Well, we're not playing. You get home right now and you fix this, or I swear to God. Or what, Mark? I asked. My voice was no longer confused. It was no longer weak. It was cold. It was the voice I used on construction sites when a fool was about to get someone killed. What exactly are you going to do? You're going to threaten me. You, a man living rent-free in a house you don't own, who is currently being investigated for embezzling $50,000 from your last job. You're going to threaten me. The silence on the other end of the line was absolute. It was so quiet, I could hear the faint buzz of the hotel room's air conditioner. I had just confirmed that I knew. That was the first shot. Mark was speechless. I heard the phone fumble again, and Emily came back on. Her voice was no longer hysterical. It was a low, terrified, trembling whisper. You knew, she whispered. You knew about Mark's problem. I know everything, Emily, I said. I know about the $210,000 in debt. I know about the BMW they're about to repossess. I know about the $50,000 he stole. I know everything. But the house. She was sputtering. Her brain was frantically trying to connect the dots. The lonely old man she had kicked out simply did not compute with the man who held all the cards. It says the house was sold, she whispered, as if reading the words for the first time and truly understanding them. It says, the new legal owners, Austin Property Ventures. New owners. Dad. What does that mean? It means, I said, taking another sip of my coffee, that you should probably start packing. What? Austin Property Ventures, I said, speaking slowly and clearly as if to a child, is a highly reputable real estate investment firm. They buy properties for cash. They are, as the notice on your door clearly states, the new legal owners of the house you are currently standing in. No, she breathed. No, you're lying. You can't. You wouldn't. Wouldn't what, Emily? You gave me an ultimatum. You told me to pay $5,000 a month or get out. You said, and I quote, "This is our world now, Dad. You pay your way." I'm 67 years old. I'm retired. I don't have $5,000 a month for rent. So you sold it. You sold our home. My home, I corrected her. You were very clear, Emily. I was just a boarder. I was just in the way. So I got out of the way. I took my name off the piece of paper you thought was so unimportant. I liquidated the asset. It was a very clean transaction. I got a very fair price. No, 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 you can't, she shrieked. The hysteria was back, but now it wasn't confusion. It was the sound of pure, trapped animal panic. We live here. This is our home. You can't just sell it from under us. I can, I said. And I did. The sale closed and was filed with Travis County yesterday afternoon. But our stuff, my clothes, the furniture, the TV. That, I said, is between you and Mr. Cade's legal team. According to the notice, you have 72 hours. I'd advise you to stop screaming at me and start calling a moving van. They are not sentimental people, Emily. They will have a constable there on Tuesday morning, and they will throw your belongings on the curb. You monster! She screamed, her voice finally cracking. You're a monster! How could you do this to your own daughter? How could you do this to your family? This was the moment. The moment all the pain of the last 5 years, all the insults, all the disrespect, all the humiliation coalesced into one final cold statement. Family, I said. You stopped being family the moment you decided my love was a commodity you could extort. You stopped being family when you threatened to throw me out of my own home. But we were joking, we didn't mean it, she sobbed. You meant every single word, I said. And you have to learn that words have consequences. You gave me a choice, Emily. Pay or get out. I chose get out. And since I was leaving, I saw no reason to keep the house. But, what about us? She wailed. Where are we supposed to go? We have no money. We have nowhere. I'm sorry, I said. And God help me, a small part of me almost was. But that is no longer my problem. How could I do this? I repeated her shriek, but my own voice was quiet. I looked out the window of the Four Seasons. The morning was bright and clear over Lady Bird Lake. It was a beautiful day. Emily, I didn't do anything, I said calmly. You did. You gave me an order. You stood in my kitchen, the kitchen I built with my own hands, and you told me I had two choices. Choice 1, pay you $5,000 a month to live in my own home. Choice 2, get out. I let that hang in the air between us. I heard her agitated breathing on the other end of the line. I'm a retired man, Emily. I live on a fixed income. Or at least that's what you've always believed. I certainly don't have an extra $5,000 a month for rent. So I respected your wishes. I chose option 2. I got out. I packed a bag I left, and I didn't look back. You can't be serious, she sputtered. The screaming was turning into a desperate, confused wail. You left and just gave the house to these ventures people. You gave it to them, just to spite us, just because we asked for help. Help, I asked. That's what you're calling it now. It sounded a lot like extortion to me, Emily. And no, I didn't give it to them. You seem to be confused about the basic mechanics of this situation. I couldn't stay in a house where I was no longer welcome. I'm just a lonely old man. Remember, I have nowhere else to go, so I had to find somewhere to go. But it is your house, she screamed. The frustration in her voice was monumental. That's what we're trying to tell you. It's your name on the mailbox. You've lived here for 40 years. You can't just give it away. You're confused. Dad, you're not thinking straight. This is what we were worried about. You're having an episode. You need to come home right now. Call the police and tell them these people are trying to scam you. You've been scammed. I almost smiled. It was pathetic, really. Her brain was doing mental gymnastics to avoid the simple truth. She was trying to fit this into her narrative of me being a confused old man. She was trying to make herself the victim, the savior who would protect me from my own incompetence. The very incompetence she was planning to use against me. I wasn't scammed, Emily. Yes, you were, she insisted. Dad, listen to me. You're confused. You probably signed something you didn't understand. We can fix this, Mark and I. We'll call a lawyer. We'll protect you. Just tell us what you did. Tell us who you talked to. I talked to my lawyer, Emily, I said. The line went completely, utterly silent. Your lawyer, she finally whispered. Who, Mr. Henderson? She remembered the name. Of course she did. The name associated with Caroline's will. The name she had tried to get information from just a few days ago. That's right, I said. I talked to Mr. Henderson. But why? Why would you call him? This is just a misunderstanding. This is about a stupid rent argument. No, Emily, it's not. This is what you've never understood. This is what you and your husband, in your spectacular, greedy, short-sighted arrogance, never bothered to check. Check. Check what? The public record, the Travis County property deeds, the truth. I stood up from the armchair. I walked to the window. I looked down at the city. It was time for the blade to fall. You're right about one thing, Emily. I don't own the house. I heard her sharp intake of breath. See, I knew it, you. Wait, what? I don't own the house. I repeated, my voice as clear and cold as the glass I was looking through. And I haven't for 10 years, not since your mother got sick. I don't understand, she stammered. If you don't own it, then who does? The bank? No, I said. I let the word sit there all alone. Then, who? The Caroline Vance Thomas Irrevocable Trust. Silence. Utter, complete, baffled silence. I could hear the faint sound of Mark in the background yelling, "What is it? What's he saying? The what?" Emily finally whispered. "The trust, Emily. The legal fortress your mother and I built 10 years ago. We built it to protect our assets, to protect our legacy from, well, frankly, to protect it from exactly this. To protect it from greedy, short-sighted, desperate people who might try to steal it from an old man they thought was weak. You put the house in a trust?" "Your mother did," I said. "She was a brilliant woman. She saw the world for what it was. She saw people for who they were. She saw the risk. So she created the trust. The house, the stocks, the bonds, everything went into it. Your brother Leo is the final beneficiary." I heard a faint, choked sound from her side. "Oh my God. But you..." She finally managed to say, her voice rising again. You're still in charge, right? You're the manager? You can't just sell it. It's Leo's." "You're very close, Emily. I am the manager. The legal term," I said, savoring the words Henderson had drilled into me, "is trustee. I am the sole trustee. I have the full, complete, and unrestricted legal authority to manage the trust's assets as I see fit. To buy, to hold, and to liquidate." "Liquidate?" She repeated the word. It sounded hollow, dead. "Yes, Emily. Sell." But, why?" she wailed. "Why would you? You told me to." I said simply, I didn't. "You told me to get out. You, an occupant with no legal standing, threatened to evict the trustee. You defined our relationship. You defined my presence in that house as a problem. So as the manager of that asset, I did my fiduciary duty. I solved the problem. I removed the problem, which was me. And since I was no longer residing there, the asset was no longer serving its primary purpose. So I sold it." You sold it," she whispered. I could picture her sinking to the floor, the orange notice fluttering from her hand. "I did," I confirmed. "Yesterday afternoon, 4 o'clock, at Mr. Henderson's office. I signed the papers. It was a very clean, all-cash transaction. Austin Property Ventures are the new legal owners. That notice on your door, Emily. It's not a joke. It's not a scam. It's the law." You... She was choking on her words. "You sold my home." "No, Emily," I said. The coldness in my own voice surprised me. "I sold my home. The home I built. The home I paid for. The home you tried to steal. You just found out you failed." I heard the phone clatter to the floor. I didn't hear her pick it up. I just heard a long animal wail of despair. It was the sound of someone who had just lost everything, and finally realized they had no one to blame but themselves. I heard the phone clatter against what sounded like the kitchen floor. Then a frantic scrabbling sound. Emily's wail was cut off, replaced by a low, guttural growl. "You!" Mark's voice exploded into my ear. It was no longer the smug, lazy voice of the man who thought he was in control. This was the sound of the cornered animal Henderson had described. This was pure, undiluted panic. "You old bastard, what did you do?" "Mark," I said calmly, "I'm not sure you're in a position to be raising your voice." "I'll sue you!" he screamed. The voice was so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. "I swear to God I'll sue you for everything you have. You can't do this. This is illegal. You're incompetent. You're old. You're senile." "Am I?" I asked. "A senile man just hired one of the top law firms in Austin, found a cash buyer for $1 million property, and closed the deal in 48 hours. That sounds pretty competent to me." "This is a joke," he roared. "You're lying. You're trying to scare us. You're at Bill's house. You're bluffing." "Am I? Mark? Does that orange sticker on the door look like a bluff? Does a legal notice from Austin Property Ventures served by a Travis County process server sound like a bluff?" I let the reality of it sink in. "You have 72 hours, Mark." I'll call the police," he threatened. "I'll tell them you're mentally unfit, that you're a danger to yourself. We'll get a judge. We'll get conservatorship." "Conservatorship?" I almost laughed. "That's a big word, Mark. Did you learn that while you were Googling how to steal my house? You think you can walk into a courtroom and claim I'm incompetent? You, a man who is $210,000 in debt. You, a man who is about to be arrested for embezzling $50,000. The silence was deafening. He had thought his secret was safe. He had no idea I had my own investigator. He had no idea I knew everything. How, he stammered. "I know, Mark. I know about the deadline. I know you're desperate. I know you thought you could con a confused old man into signing away his house so you could pay back the money you stole before you ended up in prison. That was the plan, wasn't it? Get my signature, drain the equity, and leave me with the debt. You can't prove that," he whispered, his rage gone replaced by pure terror. "I don't need to," I said. "You're too late. The asset is gone. The house is sold. There's no equity left for you to steal." I heard Emily in the background, a low wail. "What's he saying, Mark? What does he mean he knows?" Mark ignored her. He was still processing the first part. "Sold. You really sold it." It wasn't a question. It was a statement of dawning horror. "Yes, Mark, I did." You gave it away," he whispered. "You gave it to strangers just to hurt us. You probably got nothing for it. You. He was spiraling, trying to find a way that he was still the smart one, that I was the fool. "You probably sold it for $100,000. You idiot. You ruined us all." "Is that what you think?" I asked. I leaned back in my hotel armchair. I looked out the window at the clear blue sky. It was time for the final killing blow. "I have to admit Henderson advised me against it," I said conversationally. "He said I'd be leaving a lot of money on the table. He said the house was worth $1.1 million, but I told him I don't care about the extra $100,000. I just want it done." What are you talking about?" Mark whispered. "The offer, Mark. The cash offer. I thought it was very fair, all things considered. They wired the money to the trust account this morning." What offer?" I let the words land clean and sharp and heavy as an executioner's axe. $940,000, Mark. I just sold the house for $940,000. I heard a sound, a sharp intake of breath. It wasn't from Mark, it was from Emily. Then there was a crash, a loud, shattering, explosive sound. It sounded like a porcelain vase or perhaps a large, expensive lamp being thrown against a wall. 900! I heard Emily scream, her voice no longer human. It was a sound of absolute soul-shattering agony. 900,000. Mark was silent. The bluster, the threats, the rage, it was all gone. He had just heard the sound of $940,000 evaporating. He had just heard the sound of his salvation turning to dust. He had been 10 days away from conning me out of $1 million asset, and he had blown it. He had blown it all for $5,000. I heard him drop the phone. It didn't hang up. It must have fallen to the floor. I could still hear them. I heard Emily no longer just crying, but wailing. It was a terrible, deep-racking sob that was coming from her very soul. It was the sound of a spoiled child who had just been told no for the first time. It was the sound of a gambler who had just lost the biggest bet of her life. All of it, she was crying, her words muffled. It was all there, all that money, and he just gave it away. Mark, what did we do? What did we do? Mark wasn't answering. I heard another sound, a heavy thud. The sound of a man's body slumping against a wall and sliding to the floor. They didn't just lose a place to live. They knew that. They had just lost the jackpot. They had lost their inheritance. They had lost the answer to all their problems. They had lost the money that was going to keep Mark out of prison. They had lost everything, and they had done it to themselves. I listened to them weep for another 10 seconds. It was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. I reached out, and very calmly, very gently, I ended the call. I hung up the phone. I looked at the black screen silent in my hand. I heard nothing in the quiet hotel room but the faint, steady hum of the air conditioning. I let the silence sit. How long would it take? 10 seconds, 20. The phone rang again. I looked at the screen. A different number, not Emily's. I recognized the area code. It was Mark's cell phone. He was calling from his own line now. I picked up. I said nothing. I just waited. I heard breathing, sharp, ragged, desperate breaths. Thomas. His voice was unrecognizable. The roaring, self-righteous anger from the kitchen was gone. The smug, lazy confidence was gone. This was a voice I had never heard from him. It was the voice of a man at the bottom of a well. It was thin, cracking, and soaked in pure, undiluted terror. Thomas, please. Please, what, Mark? I asked. My voice was quiet. You have to call them back, he stammered. He sounded like he was crying. The property people, the Austin Ventures. You have to tell them it was a mistake. You have to tell them it was a misunderstanding. It wasn't a mistake, Mark, I said. It was a very deliberate, very legal transaction. No, you don't understand, he said, his voice rising, not in anger but in sheer panic. You can't just… 900. Thomas, you don't understand what you've done. You've ruined us. You've killed us. That sounds dramatic, I observed, taking a sip of my now lukewarm coffee from room service. It is dramatic, he cried. We're going to be on the street. We have nowhere to go 72 hours. What are we supposed to do in 72 hours? We can't even get a deposit for an apartment. That sounds like a failure to plan on your part, I said. Please, Thomas. Please. This was the man who 3 days ago had sneered at me about my utility bills. Now he was begging. You have to undo it. We'll do anything. We'll pay the rent. The 5,000, we'll get it. We'll get jobs, I heard the phone being snatched away. I heard a muffled struggle, and then Emily's voice was on the line. She wasn't screaming. She was weeping. Dad, she said, her voice thick and broken. Dad, please, Daddy, don't do this. Daddy. She hadn't called me that since she was 19, and needed $500 for a spring break trip I knew Caroline wouldn't have approved of. Please, you don't understand. You, you said you knew about the money, about Mark's job. I know everything, Emily, I said. Then you know, she wailed. The confession finally burst out of her, a torrent of shame and terror. Then you know we're in trouble. We didn't want to ask for the rent. We had to. We're drowning, Dad. We're $210,000 in debt. The credit cards, they're calling all day. They're going to sue us. That's a difficult situation, I said, my voice betraying no emotion at all. And Mark, she sobbed, throwing her husband completely under the bus. He's going to prison. He took money, $50,000. He has to pay it back by the end of the month or they're going to arrest him. Dad, please, he'll go to jail. You can't let him go to jail. So there it was. The whole ugly, pathetic truth. So this whole thing I stated, not asked, the $5,000 rent, the demand to get out, the plan you had for me to sign loan papers. It was all to get your hands on my house, to steal the equity, to pay for your shopping debts, and to keep your criminal husband out of prison. We didn't know what else to do, she cried. We were desperate. We just needed help. We were trying to protect our family. By destroying mine, I said. No, by using the equity. It was just sitting there. You weren't using it. We would have paid it back, we promise. Like you've paid back the $2,500 for the car repair, I asked quietly. Silence. A sharp, guilty silence. Like Mark has paid back the $50,000 he embezzled. Dad, please, she wailed, her voice climbing. You have the money. You said it, $940,000. You can just give us what we need. Pay off the debts. We'll move out. We'll leave you alone. We'll sign anything. Just give us the money. Please, Dad. You're our only hope. Your family. There it was. The final, disgusting, desperate request. After everything. After the threats, the humiliation, the lies, the conspiracy. After all of it, she still thought she was entitled to the money. She still thought that I was the solution. I was just a bank, an ATM, an obstacle that once it proved too hard to move simply needed to be asked nicely to open the vault. They hadn't threatened me out of malice. They had threatened me out of desperation. And in their desperation, they had shown me exactly who they were. They were thieves. And they were willing to destroy me to save themselves. I let her desperate plea hang in the air. Your family. The words echoed. I could hear her ragged, hopeful breathing on the other end of the line. She had confessed everything. She had admitted to the debts, the embezzlement, the desperation. She had laid her cards on the table, and now she was waiting for me to save her, to be the father she needed, the ATM she expected. I know, I said. The sobbing stopped. It was cut off as if by a switch. What? She whispered. I know. I repeated, my voice calm and clear. I know about the $210,000. I know about the $50,000 Mark embezzled from his company. I know about his deadline at the end of the month. I know about the BMW they're coming to repossess. I know about the high-interest credit cards you used to pay for your networking golf clubs and your diamond necklace. There was no sound from her end. Not a breath. Not a whisper. I know, I continued, that you called Henderson's office asking about adding your name to the deed. I know you were planning to trick me into signing a home equity line of credit. I know you were going to drain the house of its equity, pay off your criminal husband's debts, and then default on the loan, leaving the trust and your brother Leo with the bill. I know all of it, Emily. She was speechless. This was not in their plan. They had prepared for an angry old man. They had prepared for a weak, confused old man. They had not prepared for an informed old man. They had not prepared for a man who had already seen their entire hand. How, she finally choked out. How could you possibly? You're not the only one who can talk to lawyers, Emily. You're not the only one who can hire people. While you were busy plotting how to steal from me, I was busy finding out why. I hired a private investigator. He's very, very good. He found it all in 48 hours. The debts, the embezzlement, the lies. All of it. She made a small, wounded animal sound. You investigated us, your own family. You had just threatened to throw me out of my own home. I said, my voice like ice. You had just tried to extort me for $5,000 a month. At that point, family was a word you had already burned to the ground. I was simply gathering intelligence. So, you knew, she whispered, the horror of the realization dawning on her. When I called you yesterday, when I asked you to sign the papers, you were just playing with me. I was giving you enough rope, I said. You were the one who decided to use it. But you can fix this, she insisted, her voice shifting back to that desperate, childish wail. You have the money. You said it, $940,000. You can still help us. You can pay off Mark's debt. You can save us. You're our father. No, I said. No. What? What do you mean, no? I mean, no, Emily. I am not going to fix this. I am not going to pay off your debts. I am not going to save Mark from prison. I am not going to give you one single solitary dime of that money. But it's ours, she shrieked, the last of her sanity snapping. It's our inheritance. It's the family money. You can't just keep it. It's not your inheritance, Emily, Ushtai said. It was never yours. It belongs to the trust. And the trust's assets are to be managed by the trustee. That's me. And I have decided that the best way to manage that asset is to sell it, secure the capital, and ensure that it is safe from desperate, untrustworthy people. Like you. You hate us, she sobbed. After all this, you hate me. I sighed. I looked out the window at the peaceful lake. No, Emily, I don't hate you. That's the saddest part. I just don't feel anything at all. You're a stranger to me. You're a person who tried to destroy me to save yourself. You're a bad investment. A problem to be solved. I'm your daughter. You were my daughter, I said. The moment you stood in my kitchen and told me to pay or get out, you redefined our relationship. You told me I was just a border, an obstacle. You said, "This is our world now, Dad." Well, you were right. It is your world. And now, you get to live in it. Without my help. Without my money. And as of Tuesday morning, without my house. Dad, please, you can't. Emily's voice was broken, a desperate, hopeless sound. You can't just hang up. You can't just leave us. What about family? You always taught me family is everything you have. You have all that money. You have $940,000. You can help us and still have so much left over. Please, Dad. We're your family. I stood up from the armchair. I walked to the hotel window and looked down at the street below. The cars looked like tiny, insignificant toys, all rushing to their own important destinations, unaware of the lives collapsing in a single phone call. "No, Emily," I said. My voice was very quiet, very final. "You were the one who taught me about family. You were the one who taught me exactly what this family is." "What? What are you talking about?" she whispered. "You taught me that family is conditional. You taught me that family is a business transaction. You taught me that my value in this family was exactly $5,000 a month. And when I couldn't pay, you fired me. You told me to get out. I didn't mean it like that," she sobbed. "You meant it exactly like that, Emily. You were very clear. You said, 'This is our world now, Dad.' You said, 'You are just a boarder.' You said, 'Pay the rent or get out.' You defined the terms of our relationship. I didn't. You did." I took a deep breath. The clean, filtered air of the hotel room felt good. "I am just respecting your decision," I continued. "I am just being the boarder you told me I was, and since I was getting out anyway, I decided to sell the house. It's a simple, logical decision. You should be proud. You taught me to think in this world." "Please," she begged. It was the last dying ember of her hope. "Please, there has to be something, anything." "There is, Joan," I said. "You have 72 hours. The clock started at 9 a.m. this morning. I suggest you stop wasting time crying to me and start calling moving companies. Or, even better, call your friends. The ones you were so worried about being humiliated in front of. Maybe they have a spare room. Maybe they have $210,000 you can borrow." "Dad," she said, her voice a ghost. "Goodbye, Emily," I said. I pressed the red end button on my phone. I held my thumb over her contact. I looked at the picture, one from years ago, where she was smiling, her eyes bright, her face full of the promise of the woman I thought she would become. I pressed block this caller. A confirmation popped up. "Are you sure?" I pressed block. Then I scrolled to Mark's number. Block. Yes. I turned my phone off completely. I placed it face down on the polished desk. I sat there in the perfect, expensive silence of the room. It was done. The cancer was cut out. The house was sold. The money was secure. I looked at the hotel phone. I picked up the receiver and dialed a number I knew by heart, a number that had never asked me for anything but my time. It rang. "Hello?" His voice was clear, energetic. "Leo-san." "Dad, hey, what's up?" "It's Saturday. I was just about to take the kids to the park. How are you?" I smiled, a real smile. It felt strange, like using a muscle I hadn't used in years. "I'm good, son. I'm really good. Listen, I have a question for you. How do you and the kids feel about a trip to Europe?" "What like? When? Soon?" I said, leaning back and looking out the window at the endless Texas sky. "As soon as possible. And don't worry about the cost." "Dad, I can't just... What's this about? Let's just say," I said, "I suddenly have a lot of free time. And I suddenly have a little extra cash lying around. It's my treat." This story is a powerful reminder that greed is a poison that can blind us to the true value of what we already have. Emily and Mark were so obsessed with the money they felt they deserved that they destroyed the very relationship that was freely giving them support. They made the fatal mistake of confusing kindness with weakness and silence with stupidity. They learned too late that respect is not a one-way street, and that dignity, once you throw it away, cannot be bought back. It teaches us that true strength isn't about how loud you yell, but how patiently you can plan. What would you have done in Thomas's position? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.